off to a flyer against Senegal, the Teranga Lions of Senegal. So 2-0, the game ended in favor of the Oranja. That's very disappointing, especially when lots of hopes were actually, promise was seen in this Senegalese side. Quite disappointing.
A number of decent chances, but did not find the finishing touch. And that has got to do with the fact that if you look at Senegal in their last 13 games, Sadio Mane has contributed nearly 43% of the goals they've scored. And they are running for the last 13. So his absence was going to be a key situation they would have to find answers to. They couldn't find the answers to it today. And some of the elderly statesmen in this Senegalese team didn't also show up. Edouard Mendy to start with. You look at the goal they conceded right from the start. Cody Gakpo's first goal. He literally repeated what
Error prone he's turning out to be. Another howler. And
he just sent a high five message to the Qatari goalkeeper.
Of course.
That was just like, hey, I'm
And the
picking
funny-
up from where you left off.
But I'm just saying, it's quite pardonable if you have to do this at club level. But on the biggest, on the grandest of stages, such howlers, obviously.
The funny, he was injured,
Yeah.
apparently injured, which I think should be. It was the same thing. He came out and he had a clash with Jared Bowen, and that was when the goal came in, and it was ruled out, and there was a whole lot of VAR fuss. And he repeated the same thing. Yeah, this is the World Cup.
So there's a or you're not coming out at all.
Of course.
So for a player of his ilk, having played through the ranks to this level, some of these, mistakes or even like error, I do not think he should ever be forgiven.
Well, I couldn't agree any. The experience heads in this Senegalese setup. He's one of the players you expect to take up the leadership mantle in the absence of Sadio Mane, and today he hasn't covered himself in glory. He's at fault literally for all of the 2 goals the Dutch scored today, because you look at the second goal, the first effort was parried away by Edouard Mendy, and you look at his ability to parry the ball. The simple rule in goalkeeping: when you parry the ball, it should be away from the goal. It should not be back in play. And he literally placed it on a plate for David Klaassen to tap
To
home.
slot in.
So Edouard Mendy today hasn't covered himself in glory, but you can't cry over spilt milk. This is dead and gone. The next step has got to be, where do Senegal go from here? Because they play against a Qatari side who themselves find themselves in the same situation. They know very well it's a winner takes it all battle. Whoever loses that game
He's out.
is out.
But it was quite. Let's get into the game specifics. All of those decent chances were created by the Teranga Lions. Even though they were missing their talisman or their key, top marksman, if you like, in Sadio Mane. But I do not think they fared badly after, especially when it had to do with creating chances and all of that. I think it has to do with mentality, that mental barrier, to have that belief in themselves that yes, we can do it. Because I do not want to think that they were overawed by, the orange. I do not think so. I think it had to do with that blockade, that kind of, can-do spirit, that spirit of yes, we can do this. Because for most or for large spells of the game, I think if there was any team you would see scoring, clearly it had to be the Senegalese. But unfortunately, the few opportunities that had to come the way of Holland, they had to bury thanks to Edouard Mendy. But they were not overawed. I think it has to do purely with mentality. I do not know what you think. Eddie.
I don't think so. You see, their last 25 goals scored, 12 has been scored by Sadio Mane. In fact, if you rate it over 100, he has contributed to over 65% of their goals in terms of goals and assists. The funny thing is that they had the highest number of shots on target, 4 against 3. They had the highest number of shots on target, 7 against 4. So they were having the shots on target, and that tells you the impact of Sadio Mane if he were to be in the side. They created most of the chances. Of course, their possession was won by Netherlands, but then the final touch, because you look up front, there is not really a recognized number 9. There were some times that they had someone like Mbaye Niang who could have done the job. So Sadio Mane, although was playing as an inverted winger and number 10, he's actually the person who scores the goals. That was why Aliou Cisse was so devastated. It wasn't necessarily because Sadio Mane is a talisman or is the spirit of the team, but 65% of the goals emanate from his side. So I don't want to, because these are big stars. Big stars. Ismail Issa has played in the Premier League. He had done this to Liverpool. Remember that 3-0 or 5-0 thing? He scored almost a hat trick against Liverpool in the 2019-2020 season. So he has played in the biggest of games. You have Sheku Kuyati there. You have Idris Gana guy. He had played in PSG. He plays in the Premier League. So if it has to do with mentality, I wouldn't bring it in because you're playing big teams in big leagues.
So you listen to Percy, and I mean, he sounds as though it was down to profligacy on the part of the Teranga Lions. Because if indeed 65% of the goals they've had to score in their previous matches had come from Sadio Mane, of course, it was going to be a big loss. But you think that all of the few opportunities, or even like all of those decent chances, had to be flubbed off. Then it means that Aliou Cisse has got lots to do, especially going into that fixture where they would need to win to ensure at least passage into the next phase of the competition.
Well, if you're not scoring, you don't let in as well. And that's the very principle I think Aliou Cisse would have to start instilling into this Senegalese team, because for most parts, they had the Dutch there for the taking. They created that battle between Matthias de Ligt and Ismail Assar was an area where the Senegal found a lot of joy. For several times in the game, whenever Ismail Assar had himself 1v1 with Matthias de Ligt, he got the better of the Dutch defender. But the final delivery into the box, there was either no man to convert the cross, or the pass was under hit, and so the target man in the box was unavailable to get onto that ball. That is an area where Aliou Cisse would have to work on, because goal difference would play a key role going forward. Now they have a deficit of 2.
Yeah.
Qatar also have the same situation. They lost 2-0. They have a deficit of 2. So first and foremost, they have a deficit they would have to erase and chase the pack. Ecuador would go into that game, give or take, even if they lose against the Dutch, they will still have a positive goal difference. Yeah. Senegal is not scoring. They are wasting chances. How do they get the ball at the back of the net? That's an area. They will take solace from the fact that Qatar have the goalkeeper who himself has not shown that he can be a good shot stopper. Yeah. But Senegal were creating the chances, and you take a cue from coaches who have played. For example, Pep Guardiola, when Manchester City have played and created chances but have unable to find the back of the net, he's always said the fact that this is a positive. Since we are creating chances, it's down to the final step of finding the back of the net. They can take solace from the fact that they played well. They had the Dutch there for the taking. It was down to their profligacy and somewhat, to an extent, their mental fortitude. Because if you look at Senegal and their running the tournament, the World Cup history, for example, what undid them in that particular game in 2002 was a late goal. And unfortunately, back then it was golden goal, so they didn't have the opportunity. You look at what has happened to most African countries. Nigeria, in 1994, it was a late Roberto Baggio goal. Morocco, in 1976, it was a late goal from Lothar Matthäus. So when you take up most of the African countries, when the
Ghana was a late miss.
Ghana was a late miss.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you take most of the African countries, there's a running theme in there. The fact that most African countries tend to lose a bit of concentration in the dying embers of the game. That's an area they would have to go forward in working on. If Senegal want to progress, if you know you're not good in the dying embers of the game, kill it off before it even becomes relevant. Because if they had scored the chances they got earlier in the game, these late 2 goals would have probably been equalizers or levelers, and not winning goals. They failed to convert, and the Dutch were just patient. They knew very well that they had to pick their moments, and then when the opportunity came, they did so. Senegal failed to take advantage, and now it's upon them. For Africa, it sets a negative tone. I say negative in the fact that many had their hopes on Senegal, based on the fact that you look around the group pairing, Senegal have somewhat the cheapest or the easiest pairing. They also have the best set of players across all the 5 African nations going forward. So many were looking at Africa, particularly in the shape of Senegal, to set the tone for what could be an excellent tournament. Senegal now have themselves behind. What message does it send to the rest? Ghana, who have themselves in a very difficult tie against Portugal. Morocco, who have themselves playing against World Cup finalists. Croatia. Cameroon will play Switzerland. What message does it send? Can they undo what Senegal have done? I think it's a mixed day of emotions for Africa. Senegal played well, but failed to find the back of the net, and that has turned around the whole
Okay,
story.
so the dynamics of the group will look to be interesting in the coming days because Qatar, I mean, there's Senegal who come up against Qatar. So both teams lost in their openers, and then there's going to be Ecuador up against the Netherlands. So it's going to be a very, you know, nice. It will shape up to be quite an interesting, group because a win on the part of either Senegal or Qatar would mean that their chances, I mean, of
Yeah.
making it to the next phase will kind of look a bit brighter.
Yeah.
And then a win or draw for any of the other, teams, that's Ecuador and then Holland, also puts them in a very good stead to make progression into the next phase of the competition. So I look to, see how this whole group pans out. But then again, let's wrap up. Senegal, for the very first time in as many games, they've lost their opener, which
Yeah.
has never happened.
No, no, no.
And then I'm also reading around that Holland have also lost to an African side
No,
before.
no, no, not in their group stages. Never. They've never done that.
Tell me more about it.
And the funny thing is that you see the Dutch and the Senegalese, historically they don't really have much to talk about. Only that the Senegalese had to chase them out. So it's more or less like it's not really a rivalry because you know that didn't really have a lot of African countries to colonize.
Yeah.
Yes, it was just in around the 16th century they wanted to, between Gambia, Gambia, Guinea, and Senegal are around the same place.
Yeah.
So they set up factories over there. They wanted to overtake the place. The French had overrun the whole place.
Yeah.
So they were least here and they've never lost, like you said, their first
In their
two games.
openers, yeah.
And Netherlands are just like the Brazilians. African side, they don't lose to you. They don't do that. The last time they met an African side, that was in the group stages, was in 2006. They met the Ivorians. That was also their first time of coming.
Okay.
The likes of Didier Drogba and the rest, and they gave it to them.
Okay.
That was when you had Robin. Robin did a very good job there. There was Van Persie too. So they only had Bakary Kone.
Yeah.
Baki Kone. He was the one who scored a stunner. A very good
But
goal.
it could only pass for a consolation.
Consolation.
Yeah.
So for the Dutch, they meet the African brothers. It is
They
massacre.
know their way around.
Of course, they are
African
just like
teams,
the
all right. So
Brazilians.
let's move on to the other fixtures in the day, which had Gareth Southgate's side, catching to side their Iranian counterparts. It was obviously going to be a stroll in the park for the Three Lions, but nobody ever saw this kind of damage. In fact, it was just a training match sort of for the Three Lions.
I think it was a day of first for England because if you look through, particularly even for Iran, because Iran had played 16 international competitive games under Kailash Kerouac, who has been with them for two spells. They had conceded just 10 goals in those 16 games and have kept 10 clean sheets. The games they had conceded more than one was against Brazil, where they lost 3-0,
Yeah.
and against Germany as well. But today, Carlos Queiroz had his whole setup on that. This is the first time he's overseen a Iranian team where he's conceded 6 in a single game. It's the very first time he's conceded 4+ goals in a game as a manager. For England, it was their record equaling defeat in terms of the history of the World Cup. And for England, starting with the goal scorers, I think for me, what I was delighted about is the fact that the likes of Marcus Rashford and Bukayo Saka got on the score sheet.
Yeah.
Because these were guys who some 498 days ago, back at the Euros finals
Yeah.
in Wembley, racially abused and
After fluffing up their penalties.
fluffing up their penalties and were emotionally wrecked.
Yeah.
We saw the output on Bukayo Saka. We saw how heavily it hit Marcus
Yeah.
Rashford as well. But on the biggest of stages, these guys were able to refine their confidence and put themselves up there. And for Saka, it was his World Cup debut.
Yeah.
He's got 2 goals on the first day. First day at school, and you get such a very good day out. And I think
Yeah.
it was excellent. And Jude Bellingham, I think maybe for those who weren't watching the Bundesliga, it came as a surprise for
Yeah.
you. But this is a guy who is one of the hot shots around Europe. He's literally been pursued by every single big team
Yeah. Across
and-
Europe.
across Europe. And this is what he's been doing week in, week out for Borussia Dortmund. Laced headman runs from the middle, coming onto either crosses or latching onto passes and that was the icebreaker, because then Iran had to throw everything out of the window, because after England has scored, Plan A was wrecked up.
Yeah.
We had to go pursue it. And when the floodgate opens like that, it
Of
definitely
course.
turns on, because then Iran became a little bit adventurous. England tend to score, and it was all about it. But for England, they laid down the marker. They went into the game on a 6-game winless streak.
Yeah.
They hadn't won in the Nations League. They had struggled for goals in the Nations League. In their first 3, they actually failed to find the back of the net. But in their last 2 games, they've scored 9 goals. And this is the sort of form Gareth Southgate needs, because he needed to send a message. He was a man who literally had his job on the line. The FA gave him his backing because a number of people were calling for his head, who were unimpressed with Southgate's performance, but he knew what he was doing. He stuck with the guns which had helped him in times past.
Yeah.
Harry Maguire, for example, many had questions about the fact that why should Harry Maguire join this English team? There was Fikayo Tomori.
Yeah.
Why didn't Chris Smalling make the team? Harry Maguire even went on to start, got an assist
I
today.
think he's a loyalist.
Yeah, you wouldn't
Yeah,
be
he's a loyalist.
far from wrong calling Southgate the lawyers. And the players who he placed his loyalty in went on to
They've come
reward him.
through, for him anytime he calls upon them. But to think that the game was dominated by what I call an unnecessary noise. It had to do with the armband, whether Harry Kane was going to wear that one love armband. In fact, it dominated the headlines before the game, and they had to manage to put everything behind them. And like I said, they had to cut to size literally. Iran by 6 goals to 2. It looks to me when anyway, I mean, after the game, he spoke to the press, and the guy just didn't look content, even having to put 6 past Iran. That's Gareth Southgate. And in fact, he's actually uh, expecting his team to improve. And I'm looking at how they're going to fare when they come up against the USA, because that was, I mean, top of the world performance. Of course, you might want to say it was just a mere Iran, but I mean, they're playing at the World Cup, and so you wouldn't want to think that they came into the game as an entity. Of course, they were always going to appear as an underdogs, but such a performance, and he still looks to get more from his guys. I'm already relishing that game between England and the USA.
You see, this group is the most volatile, polarized group in the World Cup ever that nobody is really looking at. It's like the whole world against England. England has 3 of their most sworn enemies ever in the group. They have Wales, they are eternal enemies. In fact, their 2 most eternal enemies are the Scottish and the Welsh. In fact, for the Welsh, if they had their way, they would have left UK. But for now, they have to be embedded with them. For US, for everything that England is, or for everything that US is, it should have been England. Save the Boston Tea Party, that they had to find a way of leaving the whole and starting a whole united thing of their own. And the Iranians, they are so pissed for whatever the UK did to them by luring them into having a relationship with them, and rather fostering a war between they and Iraq, allowing Saddam Hussein to go and buy bombs from them to come and fight them, only so that they will get the whole Afghanistan, Iraq, and Iran polarized.
That's fine. Let's stick to the football issues. Yeah.
With the football issues, Iran, what do you call it? Iran and England and USA.
Yeah.
This is the first time the 3 of them have been in the same group.
Yeah.
And for whatever Iran did in the last World Cup, they were not to be underestimated. In a group of Portugal and Spain,
Yeah.
they were only eliminated based on group goal difference. And if you look at it critically and the match you watch, you can be so biased, and you can use your own objectivity and say that they were robbed, because watching they and Spain, there were a lot of uncertainties around it. So, like David was saying, they were a group that was really, really formidable. If you are listening to the name, or you are going with the name Iran, you would think that they were not a good team.
Yeah.
The English setup that was made, there were a lot of talks about it, with the armband issue and it was not going to be dropped. I was discussing you on the fact that for the monies that have gone in, you don't expect the FA to kowtow to anything.
Yeah.
FIFA will not do anything about that. And I don't think we are here
So
to
most
discuss
of
that.
the European countries who were built to have
There
had
was
their
nothing-
captains wear the armband have backed down. I
they
think
had
on
to
that
change
particular
it.
decision.
The money in
Yeah.
this, there is nothing you can do. They have made it a FIFA precedent. You wear it, you start with a yellow card.
Yeah.
So if Hurricane start with a yellow card, And Van Dijk said he can't start a match. He's a defender. He can't
Yeah.
start a match. The little card, just a shoulder, and he's gone.
Yeah.
And what happens to the team? So they had to put that aside. So I'm sure England puts all that rage in it, and because they know that Iran will come, that Charlie, we have to at least hold them, and let's see what happens. So when England was able to, the 2 goals were in quick succession. Papa, they were like, okay, let's open up. And when they open up, of course, they can't really stand against the firing power of the English. Yes, you can't stand against them, because I think he wanted to behave like a German. You know, the German national team, it's not really about who has form.
Yeah.
They have the team already.
Yeah.
That was why when Ter Stegen was crying out loud in 2018 that Charlie has to be put in the post. Neuer had not been in the post the whole year.
Yeah.
It was when Orelic who was playing for them.
Yeah.
But when it was the World Cup, there was no way they were going to drop him.
Yeah.
That is the Germans, and that has worked for them. And he's realized that one thing that has worried the English was inconsistency,
Yeah.
because they had Scholes, they had Gerrard, they had Lampard, they had Haggis, they had Carrick. Who starts? So they kept on interchanging from 2006 to 2010 to 2014. But when Southgate came, after 2016 Euros, he has stuck with the same team.
Yeah.
So from a progression of a semi-final in the World Cup, a final in the Euros, it's almost
a steady progression.
almost always the same. You can talk about Harry Maguire in a way, but he knows that he fit into his system, because Smalling is good, he's doing well, Tammy Abraham is good, but he prefers to stick with his boys, and the boys are delivering.
I'm sure. I mean, we could find one of our viewers think that after all, what's the rave about? It was just Iran, and so what's the rave about?
No, this is, like I put out, Iran is a very solid unit. They rarely concede. So for England to do what they did to them today, and the manner in which they did it,
But even so, there was no way Iran were going to pose any threat to the Free Lions.
Iran gave Spain a tough run, and like Percy put it, had it not been for controversial officiating reasons, they could have been at the next stage of the competition. But for Southgate, he keeps on proving his status wrong, because if you look at the numbers now, Southgate has now won 9 competitive matches at major tournaments, i.e. the World Cup and Euros. He's gone past Alfie Ramsey's total of 8 wins with the English national team. That's a feather in the cap of
That's
Gareth
still no
Southgate.
trophy to show.
Still no trophy to show, yeah, but probably football will come home at the end of the
Is he still wearing his overcoat?
Many people call it the waistcoat man.
I think there's something about him. He doesn't just exude confidence, even when he's on the touchline. That's the reason, because as a manager of England, there should be some kind of aura around you. From the time he missed that penalty, I think, was that
Maybe
1996.
96 Euros up until now. The guy
How do you want him to be?
No, I don't think
But when you see Joachim Low, he'll be putting his hands in his nose. He doesn't exude anything. What about that? But he will win
but
the
there's
World
some
Cup.
kind of aura at least
I
around
don't know
Joachim
that.
Low. For Gareth Southgate,
Southgate probably is being judged.
one, he doesn't exude any confidence when he's on the
based
touchline, and then
his-
2,
his miss from 1996.
England will not forgive you.
He's carried with himself a perception or a notion that
He's a perennial failure.
he's a perennial
He
failure.
is.
No, he's carried with himself that, and Southgate even has openly said he's looking to right the wrongs of 1996.
So he's trying to
more or
prove
less-
something. He wants
more
to
or
prove
less
something.
carrying the cross of what happened, but he's progressing with his English national team. Prior to Southgate, the English national team had not hit the last 4 of any of the major tournaments they had been to. Southgate comes to, he takes them to the semi-finals of the World Cup, takes them to the finals of the Euros.
But that's no trophy.
That's no trophy, but you can see progression, you can see growth, and that is what he's definitely. You look at the players which he changed the pack today. Marcus Rashford just needed 49 seconds to make an instant impact. He had just 4 touches. Now Marcus Rashford hadn't played for the English national team since
The
that
Euros.
Euros.
The miss.
That penalty. His last kick
Yeah.
of a ball for England was at that penalty spot kick. Now he comes on. Manager has redefined, because it was an area of contention. Why should Marcus Rashford go when the likes of Ivan Toney deserve the spot? But he stuck to his guns. Rashford just needed 49 seconds
Yeah, exactly,
to prove
exactly.
the fact that, hey, this is what the manager called me in there. And Harry Kane, the least said the better. He's a player who is gradually evolved, and from just being a normal goal scorer, he adds to play. Produced 2 assists today.
You have to give credit to Mourinho. It was when he
And
came in.
I was going to go there.
You have to give credit to him.
Jose has redefined, because
Nobody talks about that.
Harry Kane, then, before Jose had arrived, was all about goals. Jose comes in, he makes him form a telepathic partnership
With Son.
Son,
yeah.
and then the two go on to become the best duo we've seen.
And he wins both the golden shoe and the best assist
Best
maker.
assist maker. So all of these things are pointers to which England will rely on. They would look to go into the next game in high confidence. They know very well they have a comfortable position in terms of goal difference. If they get a point against in the next game, they're sure and certain.
So yes, steady progression it's been, but it now remains how they are able to get over the line. Can they do that with Gareth Southgate? That's another question I probably might have to ponder on maybe in our subsequent live shows. But then we are having to do this with Gregory, who thinks that Mendy was the cause of Senegal, losing to the Netherlands. And then Virgil Leo, disappointing outcome, he thinks, for Senegal. And for Lawrence Dogbe, he shakes his head and says that what was Mendy thinking there? So again, Mendy would be lampooned, he would be vilified, he would be castigated, and I don't know, that might probably affect his confidence going into their next game against Qatar. Thomas Cook, Mame Boama, the game is over. I think Thomas Cook actually had said to Mame Boama that Senegal, we're going to get beaten, and so he stagged Mame Boama that the game is over. There is Lawrence Dogbe again. He says, yes, the game is over. And Thomas Cook again, Mendy forgot his towel in London. Probably that could be the reason they got beaten. Probably.
Thomas has got enough jokes on him, but I think Mendy would be the talking point here. And
he finds himself always in the headlines for the wrong reasons.
For a goalkeeper, I think he should need steady progress. What it does to him as an individual is he goes into the next game with huge responsibility on his shoulders, because he knows at the back of his mind, hey, I was the cause for my team's defeat in the opening game. I need to put in an extra performance. In his spirit to put in an extra performance, he'll find himself capable of committing
same blunder, same howlers.
So Mendy, he's not putting himself in a very good position.
For how long is he going to be saying sorry to his teammates anyway? So there is Franklin Mensah. Kudos, guys, keep doing a great job. We love you too. Keep the messages coming. PK Justice, that's one of our favorite guys. In fact, he's one of our top viewers. He says, England have a Gobert Sellerson. Please, my viewers do not know anything about Gobert Seller. Anyway, thanks a lot for your message, PK Justice. Franklin Mensah again, brilliant submissions from the panelists. Of course, keep watching Sports 101. So on Thursday, that's the biggest day where Ghana are playing Portugal. So of course, we'll be live here from the Red Mango Apartment and Hotel Bar. It's an amazing place, and trust me, you will make the most when you join us here on Thursday when Ghana take on the Seleção of Portugal.
Yeah, everybody has got to be here. You've got to be at Red Mango Apartment and Bar. And
I'm sure there's going to be finger foods. There's going to be,
there's going to be a predict and win.
Really?
Yeah. There's a chance to win massive prizes. Electroland Ghana are holding us down, and so just make your way here. Follow us on all social media platforms. Sports 101 on Facebook.
What else would you be asking for?
101 on Twitter, Sports 101 on Instagram. There's more details.
So there's grills, there's finger foods, and then on top of that, you get to win amazing prizes as well from Electroland Ghana Limited.
Yeah, you get to win.
That's interesting.
All you just need to do is predict. I've gone to the Oracle. I've seen my prediction.
So your prediction reaches fruition, and you're as good as what? Taking something home, whilst you make the most of your stay here at the Red Mango Apartment and Hotel.
Exactly.
What would they be asking for? Anyway, so USA, they come up against Wales in the next game. That's a game of equals, if you ask me. Percy, let me begin with you. Do we have they had any encounters in the past before? Wales?
No, they've not met in the
up
World
against
Cup
USA.
No, Wales, you know that.
I think that's their first time of
Wales haven't been to the World Cup in 64 years.
They have been there
years.
before, but it's a long time.
64 years.
None of them. I don't think. Not even the
last
coach.
time they played at the World Cup.
Not even the coach was alive.
Thanks to so thanks to Gareth Bale, Wales are here after 64 years.
And they have their three veterans there. You have Joe Allen, you have Aaron Ramsey.
That guy still plays football. No, he still plays
and
football.
you still have Gareth Bale to be there. So this is their last chance saloon. This is a retirement game for these three. The funny thing is that they are marksmen. You don't have any of them playing in the top leagues.
Yeah.
because Bill is now retiring in US.
Yeah.
You have Ramsey somewhere also in
Bill will
Scotland.
actually be coming up against his teammate, Kellen
Yes,
Acosta.
yes. So he's just going to he's just playing MLS. So this is MLS for Bill.
And United States,
Is there any reason to fancy the US of A?
I wouldn't fancy them.
No.
Because if you look at the 26,
I'm just looking at how in the last 2 decades or even like 3 decades, you wouldn't want to talk about the USA if it has to do with what they call soccer. But it looks like they are one of the teams to be counted, especially having made consistent appearance at the Mundial. So maybe there's a reason to want to fancy them.
they didn't make it in 2018. And for this tournament, it's just a stepping stone. Remember, they are hosting the 2026.
Yeah.
And this is a
Again, alongside Mexico and then Canada. Yeah.
This is a group that is looking to find for themselves their feet on the world stage. If you take a look at their 26-man squad, the only member who has played at the World Cup has got to be DeAndre Yedlin. He
Yedlin,
played
yeah.
in the 2014 World Cup when they were in the same group with Ghana, Portugal, and then Germany. Yedlin is the only surviving member from that 2014. There are 25 debutants in this particular team. Lots of them trying to find their feet in their footballing careers, save Christian Pulisic, who is the household name. And a number of these guys are now cutting their path.
There's a Ghanaian-born guy in there, Eunice, who plays for Valencia.
Yunus,
Yeah, Musa.
They've got exciting young players who could go on with the likes of Brendan Aronson. You've got Timothy Weah. These are players they could count on, but they lack experience. But in this particular game, you could say it's the same scenario for Wales. Neither of the 26 players have ever tasted the World
No,
Cup.
not even the coach has been alive to witness.
Witness the World Cup.
Yeah.
So, in fact, actually, if you take away Yedlin, who may have a place,
Yeah.
Yedlin actually doesn't start. So I'm checking the team news
Okay.
now. Yedlin doesn't start. So of all the 22 players who are actually starting out tonight, it's their World Cup debuts.
That's
So
interesting.
they could go out there, play with the freedom, and go out there and express themselves.
But on the
Because-
basis of the USA having tasted, previous tournaments up against Wales, who have had about 99% of players making appearance at the Mundial, not tasting the World Cup, I think there's every reason to tip USA to go past the Welsh.
The unfortunate thing that you see, the US, the last World Cup that they were in 2014, you remember they had a
That was
player-
when they beat your Ghana.
Yes, they had Julian Green.
Yeah.
yeah.
The sad thing is that all of the youngsters, you see, for the past 2 or 3 years ago, there were a string of players they called the future of US. They had Weston McKennie being there. There was Christian Pulisic amongst a host of players.
Yeah.
But after 3 years, either they are bench warmers or they are perennial injury-prone players. That is the sad thing that is happening to them. Where is Julian Green? Remember, he scored a consolation.
Yeah.
Is it against Germany or so? Trying to at least come into the game. But after that, he lost his place in Bayern Munich, and now he's not even part of the team. So the sad thing is that US thought they were going to make progression with Pulisic, with Weston McKennie and his likes. But unfortunately, those era that they had, the Marcus Beasley, you had Clint Dempsey, you had Demerit and all of his people being in the team, Claudio Reyna and all of the likes. You see, there was a progression. There was Claudio Reyna and his people, that's
Yeah.
Beasley. Then when they left, that was when you had Clint Dempsey holding the torch in 2010 and in 2014. After that, there was a big gap. That was why they couldn't qualify, because you had Pulisic, who was Clint Dempsey had to retire,
Call
and,
time on his international
and the
career.
rest
Yeah, yeah.
too could not hold up the torch. And when they could get up to, they are losing their place in the national, in their respective teams.
Yeah.
Weston
So,
McKennie is
you
not
know,
playing.
You mentioned Claudio Reyna, and a name just came to mind. Gio Reyna is in the USA squad. His father played.
The son is now
The
playing.
son
for
is
the
now
USA.
playing.
Now playing.
Yes,
Anyway,
when I mentioned
we've
it
got
in-
more messages here. So Richard Jamina thinks that Koulibaly shouldn't have allowed Depay to shoot in the first place. This was poor defending from the skipper. That's what Richard thinks. And then PK Justice, he says Atizigi should start rehearsing. Else, if he go and swing himself like Mendy, he go what? I don't know what he's trying
You
to
could
say.
hear from me.
Atizigi go hear from. You gonna hear from what?
You hear from him.
Anyway, begin just a shout to you, and then Richard Jamina says he's watching us from
Betway.
Yeah, and then Franklin Mensah, good win for England despite the opposition not playing too well. Anyway, so you're tipping England to what? Go
England
past
win the group.
the Welsh.
No, England win the group, and either of USA and Wales to probably make it to the next.
No, so it means you're tipping USA to go past the Welsh. I mean,
Tonight, I'll go for Wales.
on account of what?
Gareth Bale.
Yes, Gary Bill, the extra element. You look at this.
He's on retirement in MLS. You just said it. He's playing against his mate.
He's playing against a number of these guys
So-
who he faced week in, week out. And Bill has always been that special player who
He's
tends,
not the Bale anymore. You know it.
who tends to know. And here's why I say Bill is a special player. Now, if you take into account the recent MLS Cup final,
Yeah.
LAFC were trailing at 3-2.
He
Bill
climbed off the
steps
bench,
off
yeah.
and goes on to do something magical.
Of course, MLS is just a step down
So
for him.
Bill has oftentimes taken the stage when it matters most.
Of course.
You take a Real
Especially
Madrid,
when he pulls off the Welsh jersey.
Yes, he
yeah,
is one
exactly. It's
different
amazing.
person.
It's an-
Because it was his
anytime he
goals, it
pulls
was
off-
his free kicks that actually
yeah,
got them
Exactly.
to-
So anytime he pulls off the Welsh jersey, he's an extraordinary player, and you would expect him to, step up the plate, especially when he knows a win for them puts them in a very good stead to progress to the next phase of the
I'll
competition.
go for Wales edging out this one because of the Gareth Bale factor. If Bale shows up, Wales will have a good day. For US, it's more or less about expressing themselves, going out there to have fun,
to play soccer.
To play soccer,
Yeah.
right from the top. I watched the US men's national team video on their social media
Yeah.
where Joe Biden
And it's
actually
just swagging. They are just swagging
called
around.
them, and right from the start, he admitted, "Hey, I know you guys are underdogs, but just go out there and have fun, play with pride, play with passion." So the United States themselves know that this is not the World Cup where they are being marked. This is just a preparatory platform for them because in 2026, when they host,
Yeah.
that is where they will step out and let the world know who exactly they are. For this, it's just a grounds to prepare them. I mentioned only one player has ever had a World Cup cup.
And Yedlin was even a part player in Newcastle. He
Bad
didn't
name.
really.
A big part player.
Yeah.
So for this particular night, it should belong to Wales.
I do not know what exactly informs this, but a part of me thinks that the US would prevail over Wales. If you ask me to put a word as to why I'm thinking I'm unable to do that, but this instinctively, I think it's going to be a night for the Yankees. What do you think?
I side with David because you look at this US team. You see, World Cup is a stage for the big players. It's a stage that is why I don't think a keeper like Casillas would do what Mendy did, because I don't know. This is the biggest stage you can ever have. So this is the time, or it is this stage that legends are made, villains are forever never forgotten. I don't think what Mendy did, if Senegal is out, they will never forget. And Bill would love a stage like he wants to bow out. Probably after this MLS this season or next season,
Yeah.
he would want to retire. So this is a stage he wants to impose himself, like he did in the 2016 Euros, in the 2022 Euros that was just played last year, 2020 Euros. So I see him on Ramsey.
Yeah.
Because the two of them, when they put on the Wales jersey, they are just like probably Pele and Maradona playing in the same team. So I see this world. Funny enough, the last time that Wales and England were in the same group of a tournament, Wales were the ones who actually prevailed. That was when they met in the 2016 Euros. So I even see Wales topping this group.
Okay. So a 4-star for Senegal. For England, it was a 5-star showing against a mere Iranian team, if you ask me. But for the US versus Wales game, like I mentioned, I am tipping US to go past their Welsh counterpart. So it's been amazing having to do this with you. But like I mentioned on Thursday, lots of goodies for you here at the Red Mango Hotel and Apartment. So by kind courtesy, Electroland, you stand the chance to win amazing prizes. It could be anything. In fact, it could be anything.
Maybe a
If
car.
you are making your way out here on Thursday, finger foods, not just any finger foods. I mean,
The Red Mango Kitchen.
palatable finger
Serves
foods,
exciting.
grills. What else would you be wanting to, munch on when Ghana take on the Seleção? There's something about Ghana versus Portugal.
You know, the Portuguese were first to arrive in the country.
Exactly.
Don Diogo de Azambuja
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
1471.
Yeah.
And in
And
2020,
11 years later, they had to build us the most prestigious castle in Elmina Castle.
Beyond that has to be the fact that we've got scores to settle with them, having beaten us in 2014, the last time we made an appearance at the Mundial. It reminds me so much of Lion Fatah Dada, who had to just pry the ball the way of Cristiano Ronaldo.
that
So it remains to be seen
and tie
how
his legs
that
again.
games pan out. But it's been amazing, like I said, having to do this with you here from the Red Mango Apartment and Hotel. I don't call David, right? Okay, so David Afo, on that note of USA taking on Wales, tomorrow we are back here again on
Yeah.
set.
guys, tomorrow we'll be back, just like same time. We're back, and tomorrow Lionel Messi takes the stage.
Against Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia. Should be an exciting game.
I think the Malams will really work on him. They will go to the mosque this evening. I'm sure they will be in the mosque all night. And, they actually love, in fact, I would say they hate the Argentines for what Messi did with the Israelites. So this is a payback.
And there's the heavy Renard factor. Remember, he's had stints
Yeah,
on
That
the
is AFCON.
continent.
This is World Cup. I don't think he will
And-
make any wonders here.
On that note, that's about it here from us